Welcome to the Work, Wealth, and Travel podcast. I'm your host, Nicole, and this podcast is your guide to start creating a lifestyle by design. From entrepreneurship, money and finance, taxes and residencies, and everything in between, this show highlights the nuances of a true global citizen lifestyle. Let's dive in. Alec and Krista, welcome to the Work, Wealth, and Travel podcast. We're going to dive into some international markets, real estate, but before diving in, please share with us a little bit more about both of your stories, your journeys, where you started out, and how you've gotten to where you are today.
And so my parents have been investing in real estate. That's their job for as long as I can remember. So I've always been kind of in that world, but I never really had much interest in it, but I had a lot of interest in traveling. So after I graduated college, I decided to travel all across Europe and all across Asia for 2 years. And during that time, my mom came out and visited me, and she kind of introduced me to the world of international real estate. And at the time, Alec was working. I mean, Alec, if you want to tell your part.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've lived a completely different life than Krista. Before we met, she had always been traveling, and I hadn't really been to too many places. I'd been to the Bahamas and Canada, and that's as far as I went. And then I met Krista, and my life completely changed. We traveled quite a bit. We were actually, when we first started dating, we met late in college, right before we both graduated. I went to UC Santa Barbara. She went to San Diego State. And we met right around graduation. And then within 3 or 4 weeks after we met, she took off to Europe for 4 months. So that was like the beginning of our relationship, was her gone. So we did long distance in a really big way, an 8-hour difference. So we didn't get to speak too much. And then, I was working a W-2. I was working for Appfolio, which I'm sure a lot of listeners are familiar with, the property management software, while she was traveling. And then she came back. I was living in Santa Barbara and her parents are in North LA. She came back and, she was back for what, like a month, 2 months, right?
Yeah.
Back for 2 months, and she went to Asia for 3 months. So I was like, all right, this chick obviously doesn't want this relationship to work, but I loved her so much that I, obviously would do anything to stay with her. So she went back to Asia, and then I would go and visit. So we went to Singapore and Bali. Spent about 2 weeks there. My poor employer, I just kept taking time off work to go visit her. But so she, was living in Asia for 3 months, and then she came back. And did you go back to Europe again after Asia?
Well, then you went and visited me, and then you said, I was like, okay, it's time for me to settle down, start a job. I did my travels. And then Alec comes to me and says, I'm so inspired by all of your travels that I think I'm going to go travel Europe now. And I said, okay, well, I'm coming if you're going to go.
It definitely wasn't, I'm so inspired. It's like, this is not fair. You keep going. I'm staying here working. I'm now going. And and then she was like, okay, then I'll go with you. So I quit my job. Chris is obviously the great influence. So I quit my job and went and traveled for 3 months. And then, that's how we ended up in Europe with Kathy, Krista's mom, joining us. And Chris, you can continue.
Yeah. So she, one of her colleagues invited her to Portugal to come check out this program that he had heard a lot about, which was the Portugal Golden Visa program. And he set up a bunch of meetings with some of the top developers in the country, some of the top lawyers, and my mom just invited us to come sit in on some of those meetings just to see if we were interested. We thought we were just tagging along, and we were sitting in on these meetings, and we were like, you're telling us that you can just park $280,000, buy an investment property, make returns, sell it after 6 years, and get citizenship, which comes with free healthcare, free education, and all these benefits, visa, free travel to all these different countries. So we were just completely inspired, and that's when we started our business.
And this is for the Golden Visa. I don't know if we got into that, but that was our initial product, right? So now we work in the residential space, but when we first started out, that was what we were doing. We were doing Portugal's Golden Visa program, which is exactly what Krista said, a citizenship by investment scheme. So we found out about that, and a little bit deeper into our travels, but I think Kathy came and visited and invited us because she was like, okay, no more traveling. This is ridiculous. You need to get grown-up jobs. You can't just go out and jump from hospital to hospital and country to country like we were doing. So I think it was also a wake up call, like, okay, how can we combine the two things that we like the most? We love to travel. Krista had sparked that in me, and I didn't want to go back home. So okay, how do we combine that travel with what we want to do later in life, which was real estate? And thankfully, we were presented an opportunity, and that's how Gateway Portugal, which was our previous company, started. So from that meeting that we had with Krista's mom's associate, we traveled a little bit, around Europe after. Then when we went home, we really got to the meat and potatoes on everything and created the business. And we helped a handful of Americans through the application process to get the golden visa. So we're really proud about that. That's a huge deal, in our eyes. It wasn't necessarily just setting someone's future up, through an investment and giving them some cash flow, but it was actually putting an opportunity in front of them to where they can get citizenship and start a new life in a different country, right? Which is, exciting and sexy. So we're happy with the work that we did there. And unfortunately, everything good comes to an end. And I think around September of last year, officially, but we found out about it in March. Portugal's Prime Minister Antonio Costa terminated the program. So the Portugal Golden Visa was no longer available. So we were out of a product, we were out of a job. And from there, I was in sales. Krista was in marketing. And we sat with the business associate, who was our president and been a huge mentor of ours. And we said, okay, well, what do we want to do? Do we want to pack up shop and go back to our W-2s and, quit the journey? Or do we want to pivot into a different market and different space? And we all agreed that based off of the calls that I had, people were calling, not even interested about the golden visa. They just wanted property in Portugal, right? So I knew that there was a market there. I knew there was interest in residential projects. So we just picked up and we moved towards the residential space, and it's been nonstop since.
This is such a wild ride, isn't it? It's how it always is. Okay, so I'm curious now that the business has grown and expanded and really focusing more specifically on property, what markets are you in and why have you chosen those markets?
Currently, we're in the markets of Portugal, Spain, Mexico, and Panama. We've tailored those markets, pretty specifically based off of what each of them offer. So we started off in Portugal, obviously, because that's what we were familiar with the golden visa. From there, we quickly adopted Spain because Portugal and Spain are very similar with regards to investment, with regards to purchase price, with the purchase cycle and the sales cycle, and lending. Everything's sort of in the same boat. And we love Spain. We love Costa del Sol specifically. That's the majority of the market that we work with in that southwest corner. So we quickly adopted Spain as a market. And then after that, we had heard a little bit about Tulum in Mexico and the growing market that is, and how, each and every corner of that place is just being built up with new developments and new commercial centers. And, we thought, hey, that'd be an amazing place to look into. So we went over there and checked it out, and we were amazed. I mean, everything that we heard was true, from the airport to the Mayan train, to all the development. So we were blown away, and we thought, okay, we definitely need to start, and adopt this as a market and put some projects out in our inventory, which we did fairly quickly. And it became, our most sought after market. And we're very proud of what we did there as well.
I love really seeing where the opportunities are and then diversifying into those markets. Okay, so you mentioned about lending. I'm curious, do most of your clients, are they interested in lending options in whichever country is of interest? Is it all cash buyers? Talk to us a little bit about that, because I know we operate a lot within Latin America, and lending is just very different if you're coming from North America.
Yeah. So like you said, Latin America lending, we have different types of buyers, and it really depends which market you are looking at. If you're trying to buy in Mexico, then I don't know if you know what the interest rates look like for foreigners, but they're around 11% right now. So not super viable. So all of our Mexican investors are cash only. And then Portugal and Spain, interest rates are around like 3 to 4%. So that's a really great option for people who don't have the cash on hand. But it's a much better interest rate than we have here in the United States.
I'm curious, out of all of the markets that you mentioned, where do you see the most opportunity in the future? If someone's really looking to get into the market, diversify, have a few different investments, what would you say are some of the top contenders?
Yeah, it's hard picking one in front of the others because it's sort of like picking a kid, right? Like we've grown with these markets, and you can't pick your favorite kid, or at least my mom does. But it's hard to say which one we have the most faith in, because we have faith in all of our projects, right? Um, you know, a thing that I hear the most, obviously being on the sales calls, is, oh, Tulum, Mexico. Yeah, no, like I would never. And that's a shame, right? Because obviously, Nicole, you've lived in Mexico, right? And we've been there multiple times. And, I think it gets a bad rep, especially for the American media. And I think the most important part of our jobs is the vetting process. So all the projects in which we work, we've vetted them quite at quite length, and ensured that, all right, they have the capital required for the project to be completed. They have prestige, they have experience, they have pro forma sheets that make sense. And it's not, going to be a flop, because how many horror stories have we heard about projects internationally in Latin America not being finished? And two, you drive around Mexico, and unfortunately you see shells of projects that had good intentions in the beginning, but they didn't end up fulfilling and didn't actually get finished. So we take that job very seriously, and we take that part of what we do seriously. So we only work with 1-2 property teams, developers in each of our markets. So that's sort of the salesy answer. All of our markets are good, but a market that we're really excited about is one that we actually just got back from. We were in Europe for 2 months. We just got back 3 weeks ago, and so we got to check out Spain and Portugal, and see our existing portfolio that we have there, and also scope out new projects. And personally, I love Costa del Sol, which is that southwestern corner of Spain: Malaga, Marbella, Estepona, Mijas. I think that's a really, really up and coming area. And I say that when I'm sure not a lot of Americans have heard of it. And that's because it's an up and coming area for Europeans, right? So when you think of the buyers, when you think of the renters and the investors who are coming in, it's typically the Nordic countries, because during winter it gets quite brutal up there, and a lot of them want to see the sunshine. In Costa del Sol, it's 320 days of sunshine a year, so a lot of them are getting winter homes there. A lot of them, vacation there for long amounts of time. So we're seeing great returns. We're seeing great appreciation, and the property prices are still pretty low. We have one starting at $260,000. Granted, they go up to $600,000. And as Krista mentioned earlier, interest rates are in the high threes, right? And as Americans, that's an insane thing to hear, right? The way that the lending process works. I don't know, Krista, if you dove into it, but it works off the Eurobar. And everyone who's listening can look that up. It's EURIBOR, which is sort of like our SOFR, right? So it's what the banks base their interest rate or their mortgage rates off of. Last I checked, and last we checked, Krista, I think it was 3.6%. So typically what banks do is they'll add 0.5% or a full percentage on top of that, and that'll be the mortgage rate. Portugal banks tend to be a bit more greedy than Spanish banks. So Portugal is likely going to add a point, where Spain's going to add probably 0.5 point. So, if you're looking to invest in Spain right now, you're going to be looking at a 4.2, maybe at the highest interest rate, which for Americans is unheard of. So that's why right now I think Spain's the most attractive market that we have. And we're really excited about, the new projects that we're going to adopt there. And hopefully we'll take a bunch of investors there for our next property tour later in the summer.
Cool. So interesting. Okay. So shifting slightly, but you did mention, what's happening tomorrow within the US. And so, I know what I see from our clients who are not exclusively American. But I am curious, I guess, first of all, if most of your clients are American, and if you see and have seen an increasing trajectory of them wanting to either, and I'm curious what you see, leaving the country full time, or having a backup option, or wanting that part-time home somewhere else option. I'm curious what you see with most of your clients and their demographic. Are you interested in becoming a global citizen and living a lifestyle by design in a country that aligns with you? If this is a lifestyle that you're seeking to create, we can help. Whether it be multiple residencies, citizenships, bank accounts, trust or company formations, we operate in 30 plus of the most tax-friendly jurisdictions around the globe to get you structured properly. Head to the link in the show notes to learn more and to get your global citizen journey underway today.
That's going to be Alec again.
Yeah, I can take that one. Again, I'm in sales, so I get to hear all the insights. Yeah. So, I mean, to be frank, the majority of our clients are interested in the investment, right? They're just looking for cash flow. They're looking for appreciation. They're looking to park their money outside the U.S. to diversify. So they're just looking at it as a financial thing, and a safe investment. Now, with regards to the Golden Visa, I can take a step back and say that we do offer two different programs within the Golden Visa, one in Portugal and one in Panama. Spain just recently, within the past few months, discontinued their Golden Visa. Now there is the D7, which is the work visa. That's a completely separate thing that doesn't involve real estate. If you're interested in that, look it up, the D7 visa in Spain. But the majority of the people who are looking, at our Golden Visa programs, whether that be Portugal, whether that be Panama, I haven't had someone that's just like, get me out of America yet. I'm really waiting for that investor because I think that'll be a fun conversation to have. But I think just people are looking to just prepare. And I think that's the few people that we've helped. As like I said, we've helped a handful of Americans in the past with our previous endeavor, Gateway Portugal. None of them were looking to renounce their U.S. citizenship because, again, this is something that a pretty common thing I had to tell investors when they were looking at the Golden Visa. If you get citizenship elsewhere through the Golden Visa, you're not escaping America, right? You're still going to be an American citizen, and Uncle Sam's still going to want his cut based off of what you get, right? There's few tax incentives, but you're still going to have to pay American taxes. You're still an American, and you're not going to be able to completely escape unless you renounce. And that's a pretty serious thing to do. And I haven't run into anyone who's like, yeah, I'm getting out of here, I'm renouncing. If you are, I'd be open to have that conversation with you. We can help you. But yeah, it's typically just people who are looking, to invest in countries that they frequent quite often. We have a lot of people who are like, hey, I go to Spain bi-yearly with my family. We stay, at hotels, and, it'd be worth just getting a project there that we can rent out the rest of the year and make some returns, and it can pay for the trip and more. So typically it's not people who are trying to jump ship.
Interesting. Yeah. No, the reason I ask is because a lot of the clients that we work with, they are looking sometimes for investment opportunities, sometimes not, but they are looking for that additional option that may become a first option potentially in the future, and definitely not exclusive to Americans. But that's really interesting to hear, the different market that you're in. So I'm curious on the business building side of things and the entrepreneurial journey. What has it looked like in terms of you guys building up a client base, working toward promotions, advertising? Like, what does that look like, especially when you're in so many different markets and you're unsure which markets clients are really going to gravitate toward the most?
So our whole mission as a company basically is just to get the word out there. I think we specifically focus on American investors just because that's kind of what we have had access to. But we're just really, really trying to let American investors know the opportunities that are out there. If they're afraid of property prices in the United States getting so high, interest rates so high, we are just trying to spread the word that there's 3 to 4% interest rates out there. There are $200,000 beachfront properties out there. Like it exists. You just have to look a little farther. So we have kind of just focused on getting the word out through podcasts. I spoke at a conference recently. We work with affiliates to get on different lists just to get the word out there. And then if anybody's interested, they will usually just reach out because if they've never heard of it before, they just want to learn more. And then Alec will talk to them, see what their preferences are, see what's really exciting to them. Is it the interest rates? Is it the returns in Mexico? Is it what is it that they're really looking for? Is it the residency of Panama? And then he can kind of narrow it down with them.
So interesting. I mean, I don't know if you have anything to say on the topic, but I mean, I'm sure you will, especially working with Americans. But it's so interesting for me coming from, like, I was originally from Canada. I haven't lived there in about a decade, but coming from that mindset and now living a very global lifestyle, and like Asia is my place. Any listeners, like I also love Latin America. I've been here for quite a few years. There's a lot of opportunity here, but I love Asia, and I also love Latin America. And I think a lot of Canadians, Americans, Westerners in general really only because maybe you get 2 or 3 weeks, maybe per year to leave the country and to travel, if that's how you choose to spend your vacation time. They don't really realize how many lucrative opportunities are out there when you, yes, get like a little bit messy and there are a few more moving pieces than doing things inside of your home country, but there is still very affordable property where it's like, I don't even look at like a Toronto market, for example, because why would I? But like you're looking at $1 million plus. And I think that's pretty standard in a lot of somewhat solid markets in North America. So I'm just curious if that's something that you see a lot, because I know myself with clients, like a lot of the time I have to be like, there are opportunities out there, but you really have to live more of that global lifestyle or have someone like you guys in your corner who really understand about those opportunities.
Yeah, I say this all the time, but I feel like if you were to pick up all of our markets in which we work and place them in the United States, they would be some of the hottest markets in the world, right? I think it's just looking past that America-centric mindset that investors tend to have and look into different markets abroad that are scary. But it's just scary because they're misinformed or uninformed, right? And I think that's our job. And that's what Krista was alluding to is, hey, look, our first role is to educate, right? Like we want to inform Americans and inform Canadians and their non-nationals that there are amazing opportunities outside the United States that can give you really great cash flow, that are cheap buy-ins, and that are going to appreciate year on year, and they're going to give you a really, really great return once you do the exit strategy. So that's our number one thing. And two, it's just when people think of Americans or non-nationals or whoever who have beachside villas in Portugal, right? You think of millionaire, you think of billionaire. And what we're really trying to also explain is that, we work with a lot of conventional investors, right? It's not very unattainable. You don't have to, have $1 million, $5 million in the bank to purchase one of these units. The property that we have with the least amount of buy-ins, like 180,000 in Tulum. And then also, we tend to work with conventional investors, right? I think that's another huge misconception that investors have is when you purchase a property abroad, it's your 5th, 6th home that you go, 2 weeks out of the year to use right there on the beach, and you use your yacht. That's just not the reality, right? The majority of our investors are, like I said, conventional. We've had some people who have reached out where this is their first investment opportunity, and we take that very seriously. We don't take that lightly. We want to ensure that we present, solid investments that we believe in, because, we don't want to ruin someone's investment journey by presenting their first, project that fails. Right. So, I would tell people that, hey, look, if you have enough money to purchase in the States, then you have enough money to purchase abroad. Go ahead and do it.
I want to ask more on a business building and also more of a personal note as well. What is it like working together as a team, as a couple? You know where I'm going. You probably get this question a lot. What is that like? Are there difficulties, struggles? Like how are things getting mitigated?
There's been a big learning curve, I would say, but I think it makes us closer. I think we're closer than ever because of it. It is an interesting balance to be, boyfriend and girlfriend and also business partners, because sometimes you have to wear your work face and sometimes you have to wear your loving face. And we're both so passionate about the company that we can get a little bit worked up, especially when we really want something done or we're super excited. So finding that balance has definitely been a learning curve, like I said, but I think we've gotten to a point now where we know each other better than ever. And if anything, it's really cool to have like a passion project that we can both work on together.
Yeah. And I can also just add, we've had the best 2 influences, that have been working beside us, in front of us, which is Rich and Kathy Fecky from Real Wealth, who are Chris's parents. They've been in the business. They started Real Wealth, 30 years ago, right? They just had their 30-year anniversary. Mm-hmm. So, every time that we stumble or we, get into a a little fight, and we're trying to figure a way out of it and try to maintain the relationship that we have outside of business, but then also her running the marketing team and me running the sales, and sometimes we butt heads on ideas. We reached out to them, and they have been so helpful in guiding us, and not allowing us to have the blinders on of, okay, this is my associate, this is my partner, but rather this is the woman that I love. And she needs to be treated as such. And I will take the majority of the blame. I do get a little riled up sometimes on some things. This is for both of us, this is our baby, right? And I don't think either of us ever expected to get into this field. And we don't take that lightly. And we're very excited about this. And we're very proud of the work that we do. And sometimes we get a little too excitable about it. But we're boyfriend and girlfriend, and we're partners before anything. And sometimes we just need to remind ourselves that.
I will say from what I've experienced, so my partner and I, we don't work in the same business together, but we both are entrepreneurial in our own endeavors, very different spaces. But even working with someone as you are running a business and they are running a business, I mean, it's not a business together like you guys. So you're a completely different level, but it can be very like high stress, high stakes sometimes, because things need to get done. Things have a time frame. Even if we're not working in the same business, like we have to manage our own things, and timing doesn't always coincide with when works best. So there definitely is a lot of moving components to that. But I really think, I believe at least, and I'm sure you both do as well, that it's so rewarding to be with somebody who understands the entrepreneurial journey. And I couldn't imagine it any other way.
Yeah. That's what we said, when we first got this thing going and we started seeing success, is we're never going back to a W-2. We're going to be entrepreneurs till we die, and we're really excited to see. And that's a beautiful thing about real estate. We're right now we're full steam ahead on international, but who knows, in a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, sometimes you deviate from where you were originally and you go into a different path and you pivot, just like we pivoted out of the golden visa. So, we've set our roots here in the international space, and we're excited to see where we end up, but it's not going to be a W-2. And hopefully we continue working together forever. That's the goal.
Yeah, I will say it's really, really fun to build something together. It has its challenges, but it's really cool to see something that started as just this little seed of an idea and to work together to build it. And we'd spend a lot of time together because of it. And I love it.
I love that. So before we close out, is there anything that is important to touch on in this conversation, whether it be business building, entrepreneurship, country-wise, mindset, anything that we have not touched on that you think is important to touch on in this conversation?
I would just first say, in terms of travel, you said Asia is your favorite place, and I wholeheartedly agree. I absolutely loved Asia. I'm dying to get back, and we're actually looking to expand possibly to some Asian countries in the future. So that could be in our path. And also just, I think this is one of the biggest things I say to a lot of people is a lot of us fear the unknown. We all know the laws and regulations of our own countries, and so that just feels really safe and familiar. But if you only stick with what you know, then you can miss out on some really, really, really incredible opportunities. So just don't be afraid of what you don't know, and always be looking to learn more, I would say.
Yeah. And then I'll also piggyback on top of that. And I think, Krista, that goes great for both investment, right, and purchasing abroad, and then also doing what we did, which was starting a business. And now, we can't imagine a world not doing what we're doing now. And then also what I'll say is kind of away from real estate. I alluded in the beginning of the podcast that I hadn't had much experience traveling before I met Krista, and she did. And I will say, that traveling has completely changed my life. I hate saying this because it makes me sound like I didn't take college seriously, but I seriously, mean this when I say traveling has taught me more about life than actual college did, right? All the tests and studying that I did in college, sure, that helped in certain aspects. But when I, solo traveled in Europe, and when I went and visited Krista in Asia, and I got, deeply woven into different cultures and experiences, and I was taught independence, and all the things that come with traveling. It's completely changed my life. So take away the fact that everyone has the ability to travel, save up some money if you can. Asia is extremely cheap. Both of you know that. So, if you feel stuck in life, or if you feel like you're missing out, or you just want a change of perspective, save up some money and travel. I promise you it'll change your entire life. It's been amazing for both of us and everyone that we know. So travel as much as you can.
Awesome. Love it. So where can people find you both online?
Our website is gatewayinvestors.com, and all of our social media platforms at Gateway Investors.
You've just listened to the Work, Wealth, and Travel podcast. If anything from this episode resonated with you, I would appreciate if you share this podcast on your socials. And of course, be sure to tag me. And don't forget to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you for joining me on this global citizen journey, and I'll see you in the next episode.